Hello students, on behalf of all of the Biology 2300 Human Anatomy faculty, welcome. We look forward to working with you throughout spring semester 2021. The goal of this short video will be to give you the layout of Blackboard. There are some consistencies in the way in which the Blackboard will be presented to you regardless of which section you're in, regardless of which instructor you have. And to really focus on some resources because the resources are consistent across the sections. So we'll spend some time today in the Our Classroom button and this digital textbook resources button just to kind of show you how to manage your time and how the materials have been built. Some should be used in preparation, and many of them will be used also in review. To give you some guided tasks as opposed to what maybe happened a couple of years ago where, you know, everybody studied a little bit differently and some people spent more time than perhaps was effective or necessary. And so what we find here is underneath, let's start off first in orientation, start here. You'll have, you know, this may very well be customized by your individual instructor, but I will orient you to a student registration tutorial. So this registration is for a resource that you already have access to. It's not an additional purchase, and you just have to register your register an account. Okay, and so there is a short video here that if you don't want to listen to me again, you can go there and just as a quick reminder. But the reference in this video will be to our digital textbook / resources button. That is the way in which you will gain access to the Connect exercises, okay, after you have registered. So when the individual in the video references the specific link in your Blackboard website, it's the digital textbook resources, okay? So we'll get to that here in a little bit. I actually have an example calendar to help with some of the rationale. So I'm going to open that up and we'll put it off to the side so that I can reference it, okay? And so this example calendar, again, may very well be modified by your individual instructors. It may also look very familiar to many of you if you look at your individual sections, but do note that there are Concept A and B smart books, for example, due in this first week, and that's a Connect assignment in the digital textbook resources button. So you can find very specific due dates that have been programmed in, and you also generally know where to go as well. Again, if this was the format provided to you. Okay, so what I want to stress is these smart book exercises, as well as any question sets, or down the road you'll have lab reviews, okay? This sort of modified orange color here. Notice how they're towards the end of the week or as late as possible before an exam, okay? That's intentional. That's a form of review, okay? And you're going to spend some time inside of Connect, and that should be treated as study time, okay? I'm not saying that you don't make note cards anymore, but I am saying that when you used to make note cards, you were preparing to study. This has been built such that it can adapt to what you know and give you more questions if you need them or less questions if you need them. So it's a very effective form of review. Okay, very effective form of review. Okay, so that's why they're generally speaking towards the end of the week. That's how at least they were built. Okay, and the rationale with the timing. These smart books and any lab reviews are located in the digital textbook resources button. Okay, so if you go underneath Unit 1, again you see smart books. Okay, starting in Unit 2, because the lab becomes a little heavier, you'll see some lab reviews that all have a due date towards the end of the unit. You should be working on them throughout, and you can come back to these multiple times, but the due date ultimately is prior to the examination. Okay. Again, you can come back to these multiple times. Okay, it's not just a one attempt. It's really a form of study. Okay, so you'll spend some time in this, and it's not a lot of points because it is a form of studying, right? But do keep in mind that they're available to you. Okay, so starting Unit 1, for example, you do have some things that are due within the first week towards the end and into that second week. Now, this is a form of review. If you go to the Our Classroom button, okay, there is an introduction, Unit 1, Okay, you'll find the individual lectures. Now these, ideally, are used even prior to meeting with your instructor, okay, in preparation, all right, so that their individual meetings every week are even more valuable because you're able to clarify, ask the right questions, know what questions to ask, and maybe fill in some gaps in your knowledge when you meet with them. Okay, and so there's a PowerPoint here and also a video tutorial. Now, very important, if I go back out to the introduction, this is mentioned in the introduction, there is a concept outline worksheet dedicated to each concept. Okay, so for Unit 1, there were various concepts, concept A, B, C, D, E, right? All the way to H for Unit 1. There is a worksheet found in the course manual. So this is the course manual that's purchased from the bookstore. It's likely called the Lecture and Laboratory Package, the way in which they word it on the bookstore's website. But when you get it, it has 4 names on the front, it's blue, it's spiral bound, there's a bunch of worksheets inside of it. Those are a form of a study guide, sort of a study outline, okay? And you can complete that, right? You can complete that outline even before meeting with your instructor, see what questions are going to be helpful to you, what gaps maybe you have. Again, when you proceed into the lecture materials, there would be a worksheet dedicated to Concept A. There's a 20-minute video here and a worksheet, okay? So do keep that in mind. This should happen as early as possible, okay? So with respect to the SmartBook exercises and the reviews, that was later in the week. And these PowerPoints and worksheets, that should happen early in the week. So a piece of advice, and this is coming from data that we've learned from, if you simply try to complete the review exercises, these SmartBooks, and you haven't prepared and you haven't started to study yet, it takes a long time to get through them, okay? If you have prepared, then the software is going to recognize that you know more and have to give you fewer additional questions, okay, to complete these exercises. So it's very important when you take a look at that calendar that the SmartBooks and then later on the lab reviews are a little bit later in the week, that you have prepared prior to starting those. And how do you prepare? Not only with meeting with your instructor in the dedicated meeting, which is a very important meeting, but even prior to that, you can start finishing the worksheet, completing the worksheets, the concept outline worksheets, using our classroom video tutorials. Every single concept has a lecture and a PowerPoint. The exception to that is Concept B. That one's a bit unique. But for the sake of this video, Concept A, B, C, D, E, F, G, there's always a worksheet. And as long as you're trying to complete that throughout the week, ideally before you meet with your instructor, and then you can fill in the gaps and take additional notes, then you're going to be best prepared for that review that comes later in the week. Okay, so again, goal of this video is to give you a general approach to the resources so that you don't ultimately become overwhelmed. What we do find is the folks that aren't accessing things throughout the week, including interacting with their instructor, when they get to this digital textbook resource, due date, right? These SmartBooks, they're spending, sometimes greater than 5-6 hours on something that another student that has prepared, and we can see that digitally, may only spend, an hour. So it's very important to make sure you have prepared prior to these SmartBook exercises, and then they become a tool. And the time, again, that you spend inside of these digital textbook resources, the Connect assignments, should be treated as study time, because it is adapting to what you know and what you don't know. It's not just a static exercise. It's not just a series of questions. If one student's getting something correct, well then, they're not going to get that same question potentially again. It's also going to ask you if you're confident in your answer, less confident, or not confident at all. So again, it can learn from that. So the more you have prepared, again, by using the concept outline worksheets and the lectures in our classroom, the more effective these things are. And you'll start to feel much more confident prior to an examination. Okay. So that was the goal of this tutorial, the goal of this video. Again, I wish you all very well. You'll hear from many of us in the form of a recitation as well. I wanted to take an opportunity to share with you that there is an opportunity, even in addition to your weekly meetings with your individual instructor. There will be a schedule shared to you prior to week 3, where there are additional times, sometimes once a day, and 5 or 6 times a week, where you can come and have additional help on specific topics. We call that a recitation, kind of like a review session. It'll happen digitally, obviously, but just another opportunity, and I wanted to mention that towards the end of this presentation. So we wish you all well, and take full advantage of the resources, and please do not wait. The earlier you can get started on those, the Our Classroom lectures with the worksheets, and then meeting with your instructor throughout the week, the better off you are in the long run, in the total amount of time that it'll take to achieve a high grade. So thank you for your time. Enjoy spring semester 2021.